Hello my friends. I'm going to present a few different grafting scenarios of different types of trees, and this particular tree has been top worked and it's all grafts, and I'm removing one of the limbs because I want a variety of pairs on this tree. I'm holding the limb that I'm cutting so that when it releases it won't tear the bark. This is a pear tree that I'm going to graft onto. It's kefir, and what I want to do is put some Bartlett onto this, mainly for some cross-pollination, and I like Bartlett pear. So after I cut the branch off, then what I want to do is, this is about 1.5 inches diameter, so this will take 2 grafts, and I'm going to make a slice right here and one on the back side. I want to go into the graft, and you see here I'm lifting the bark. Okay, the graft happens in this cambium layer. Okay, now for the graft we'll do this larger piece here. We want to make a quick slice. Right here, and I'm going to open this up here, start that inside. I will push this in, and the wound on the scion is pushed down below this edge, and we're going to do the same with this one. Move. I want to open this side here. Same way. Push this in, and you see it went down below. After that's inserted, I have my grafting wax here, and I'm going to coat the wounds with the wax. This keeps the scion from drying out, and it helps prevent disease from entering the wound. You need to keep moisture out. And I'm going to do this to the ends. I don't know if you can see that, the cut end up here. And now I'm going to wrap it. And what the wrapping is going to do is give mechanical support, and it's also going to help keep water out. This grafting wax, or this surveying tape, will deteriorate in time, so you won't have to remove it. It will also stretch as the union heals and expands. Just tuck it in like that. And I'm going to put a little more wax over that end. You can use this grafting wax on tree wounds also. And in a couple weeks the callus will form and that joint will heal. Go to the next tree. This was a larger tree, and I removed the top completely. So I'm going to put 5 grafts onto this stump. And one reason for doing so many is it's an extreme shock to the tree to have the whole top removed. So all of these new grafts are going to take and start feeding the roots. And as the tree matures, it will be an awkward shape. So what you want to do later is remove some of these grafts to give the tree a proper shape or proper form. Possibly maybe leaving 3 remaining. Cambium layer. And I inserted that so that this wound that I just cut is completely sealed. Same thing with this. In, pry it open, get that started, press it in, and I'm looking at the back so that I covered the wound. On this. Okay, now I'm going to run tape on this, and that will give it some mechanical strength. And what I'm going to do this time, split the stalk. Okay, now on this one, we're going to line up the cambium. Any graft not involving separation of the rind from the wood or the rootstock is called a cleft graft. That's what this one is. Again, this is a wild hawthorn. Now normally I would have cut these closer to the ground, but since they're growing in the brush, I want the grafts to not have to compete so much with the brush that's growing around them. So for that reason I cut them taller. And this one, I'm going to slip a graft under the bark. Sometimes the bark is too flimsy on the end, so you have to tip it so that there's a little bit of strength of wood holding it so it can slide in. I'm going to do the same with this one. A rind graft is any graft in which the scion is inserted between the rind and the wood. This is an apple tree that I'm reworking, and I have all apples on this. Now I'm going to put a couple pears. My grandmother always told me that if the fruit has the same or similar type of seeds, that they are compatible and you can graft one onto the other. I'm keeping my scion stalk moist and in a plastic bag. Have a damp paper towel. Now the ends of these are kind of dried, so I'm going to remove the ends. Some healthy live wood there, right there. Same with this one. When I can, I'll put 2 grafts onto any of these end branches, and it'll increase my chances of one of them taking, if not both. And if they both take after the first growing season, I'll clip the weaker one to leave one form the new branch. The scion stalk you want to cut when it's dormant and keep it in your crisper with maybe moist paper towels. And then you wait until the spring when the sap starts flowing and the bark can be lifted, like you could see what I'm doing here. This allows the bark to slip, and you can slide your scion stalk underneath, and the cambium layers will then touch each other and form the union. When I apply the wax, I make sure that I coat all the exposed uh, bare wood and any of the wounds, and I fill any of the gaps that might be left between the scion stalk and the rootstock. Another tape that works very well for this wrapping is plumber's Teflon tape. The cut on this scion must be very flat. Often failure of the graft to take is attributed to an uneven cut on that scion stalk. Here I'm tipping the point of that scion because the tip is so flimsy it's not standing up to allow me to push it into the rootstock. The wrap is very important with the graft. The wrap gives additional mechanical support between the scion and the rootstock. Also, it increases the chance of the graft union to be successful. There should always be a pretty good pressure between the scion and the rootstock so that the cambium layers are in constant contact and not shifting. And additional wrapping up at the top where the graft union is taking place is very important for the success of this graft. This is a wild hawthorn growing in my field, and I'm going to do a whip graft onto this with a tongue onto it. This creates a real good mechanical joint on such a small rootstock. Notice the cut that I did on the center of the rootstock, and that's forming a tongue. I'm going to do the exact same cut on the scion stalk right here. Just be careful when you're drawing that knife towards you. Now with those two slots, just putting the two pieces close together, pressing and then pushing down, they usually grip each other and locks real firm. With this type of a graft, it's a real good idea to try to get two pieces that are the same diameter, the rootstock and the scion. This should allow a real easy connection between the cambium layers. Wrapping this type of a graft, start below the graft union and wrap all the way above on top of the scion stalk. Tying this on so that I can see it when the vegetation is up. And it's going to be struggling with weeds, so when I come by I can knock the weeds down. And all this is goldenrod. Grafts may fail for a number of reasons, and if you're aware of what makes a successful graft and the proper parameters, you will be successful at grafting. Graft only when the rootstock is at the slip stage. This is when the cambium layer is active and is noted by the ability of the bark slipping away from the wood. At this time, the rootstock shows signs of bud swelling or leaf growth. The scion stalk must be cut while it's dormant. This is done by cutting either in the late fall, winter, or very early spring before the buds begin to swell. After cutting, you must store the scion stalk in a damp medium and at a temperature between 35 and 40 degrees. This can be done in the crisper of a refrigerator. Contact between the cambium layers must be maintained between the scion and the rootstock. This is done with a mechanical joint with pressure applied by either taping or tying at the union. You must keep the scion and the union protected and from drying and from water washing the union. This can be done with waxing and wrapping the area of the graft. Lastly, the rootstock and the scion must be compatible. Thanks for watching, my friends. Bye-bye.